you touched on an interesting point earlier about taking a strategic approach, understanding what the goals, aims, problems are of an organization before you start even thinking about technology, rather than trying to make technology fit as looking at what's happening as standard. I think that's a really crucial point, and it's something that a couple of the enterprise procurement professionals who were at this event the other day and some of the tech companies were bringing up. It's just about there's no point in digitalizing a poor process, and quite often that can happen, where you're basically taking something that's inefficient and making it inefficient in a digital format. That's not what it's all about.
Yeah.
So would you be able to talk a little bit about how you typically advise organizations, and what the sort of problems and starting point that you usually come across?
Sure. And just to add on to what you were saying, the best way I've ever heard it said is, if you have a chaotic process and you automate it, you're just going to have automated chaos, right?
Exactly. The best kind of chaos.
Yeah, that's right. So I've always found that to be very very visual, right, in terms of explaining it. But anyways, to answer your question more directly, to how I would approach like a mandate with certain clients, for me, it's all about road mapping, right? And being able to understand, okay, what is the organization's spend profile? So are you in manufacturing and you have a lot of direct spend? You also have some indirect spend, and we need to consider both of those in the architecture of the systems. And when I say the architecture of the systems, I mean agnostic of technology, right? So there's like 7 main blocks that I see in procurement system architecture. There's spend analysis at the front, then we get into sourcing and category management strategies. Then we get into CLM, or contract lifecycle management. And once we've got, that's more of the strategic procurement modules. We've got, then when we get into more operational purchasing, we've got the procure to pay or procure to order modules, where we're cutting recs, approvals, purchase orders, doing goods receipts or service receipts. We've got invoicing and accounts payables. And then we've got supplier relationship management that kind of, you know, is threaded across the entire value chain, right? So those are the big pieces. And then I'd look at those big pieces with that company's spend profile and their organizational profile as well. Are they based in North America? Are they global? What are the other considerations that we need to have in there from an IT standpoint? And finally, the deployment strategy based on existing constraints, right? Oh, so is there already 18 ERPs that we need to take into consideration, or is there one single ERP? Is there already a source to pay tool in there somewhere? Like, are there other tools that we need to take stock of before starting? And so we have kind of all the pieces, right? We have, okay, what's our business profile, spend profile? What do we have in terms of objectives for each of those blocks I mentioned, right? Where are the big value drivers for our business and our industry? And then fourth, third, what's the constraints that we have to play with, right, from an IT standpoint? And once you've got all those components, you can start to think about, okay, well, what's the highest priority from a benefit standpoint? What's the highest priority, or what's the easiest thing to implement from an adoption standpoint to get the ball rolling? And what other constraints do we need to think about in terms of IT projects that are on the roadmap? Are you replacing an ERP system? Is it a fresh ERP system? Do you have other constraints, other projects that are coming and interfering, or that need to be considered in a roadmap? And then once you do that, it's an iterative process, right? You'll put it on the table once. We'll look at it, poke holes in it, and adjust it, and eventually we get to, okay, this is where we're at. This is where we want to get to. These are the value drivers. These are the adoption drivers. These are the constraints that we need to be aware of. And then it's all about execution, right? Like crafting that initial strategy is relatively easy in the grand scheme of things. The execution afterwards, the plan is you're never going to execute 100% on the plan. So you always need to keep updating that roadmap as new information becomes available as well. And as you face different challenges within the implementation of the projects, but doing that and also keeping each of the pieces of that roadmap in execution as small and as simple as possible is what's going to get you from crafting that roadmap to having something that's completed in terms of desired end state.